Dr. Teri Pipe is the Chief Well-Being Officer for Arizona State University, and she is the founding director of ASU's Center for Mindfulness, Compassion, and Resilience. And one of the things I was talking with Dr. Pipe in the back about was, amazingly, every year, annually, she hikes down and out of the Grand Canyon in one day. So this woman has to be quite mindful and intentional as she's doing that to achieve this feat. And in continuing on my NCAA jokes, she is a Nittany Lions fan, and so she is good people. So I would ask you to help me welcome Dr. Teri Pipe to the stage.
Good morning. Well, thank you. Thank you. I know for most of you this is like midday, right? You're used to waking up in the wee hours of the morning. So welcome to Phoenix. If you're not from here, we're delighted to have you. As Katie said, mindfulness is really, the way that we're going to talk about it is about you. So this session was really created with you in mind. I've been thinking about you now for 1.5 years. Did you know that? You have been on my mind for 1.5 years because 1.5 years ago I got an email from Mary Beth. And in the subject line was solid waste management, SWANA. And I thought, this is a mistake. This is a spam email. And so I did open it, and I read Mary Beth's message. And she is so visionary and such an incredible leader about, what are the skills that you need to know to take your leadership to the next level, and how does mindfulness play into safety, not only creating a safe space for those that you lead, but creating a safe space for the households and the businesses and the countries that you serve. So my background is nursing, and in nursing we talk a lot about creating a safe environment. And so I view the leadership that you exert as absolutely essential in promoting health and well-being, not only of individuals and households, but of our communities and of our planet. So I want to tell you from the very bottom of my heart, at the very beginning of this time together, thank you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for your leadership. I really appreciate it. Probably as leaders, you don't get told that very often, so I hope that you hear it deeply. So we're going to begin by actually doing what I'm here to talk about. And many of you already have a mindfulness practice. You just might not call it mindfulness. So we're going to actually get present, and I'm going to guide you in that. Everything that I'm going to ask you to do is an invitation. You don't have to do it. It's not required. However, if you don't choose to go along with my instruction, just please sit there and be as attentive as you can be so that you don't get in the way of anybody else participating. All right? So to start with, I would like you to get your feet on the ground, legs uncrossed, sitting up in your chair a little bit. So if you're sitting back on the chair, just bring your spine to be parallel to that chair. With your hands, I would like you to uncross your arms and just rest your hands in your lap, either with your palms down or your palms up to you. And if you'd like, you can soften your gaze or even close your eyes. I know this is dangerous. You might go back to sleep, but that's okay. If you go back to sleep, that's what you need. So closing your eyes and maybe taking some deeper breaths so that you really breathe deep, feel your belly expand, and then exhale. And just do that a couple of times, signaling your body through your nervous system and through your respiration and your heart rate that everything is okay. You're exactly where you need to be. So now I'll read to you this poem, and I'd like you to breathe in and breathe out on the different, you'll be able to tell when to breathe in and breathe out. Just be guided by your breath and by the words. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. And now just noticing what your body and mind have to share with you. What information is there? How does it feel to be awake and relaxed at the same time? To be fully present and know that you belong right here in this moment. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Just being who you are and how you are in this moment. Just checking in, what does that feel like? And then knowing that you can come back to this state of being anytime on your own, either by sitting, eyes closed and breathing deeply, or in the movement of your day-to-day life by just taking a breath and reminding yourself of who you are and how you are. And so now bringing some small movements into your fingers and your toes, maybe some stretches into your wrists and ankles, opening your eyes. And we have a baby among us. Hello, little baby. So I'm going to ask you how that was for you, and if you would, shout out the answer, and I will repeat it because we're being taped, so I want to make sure that we get everything on tape. So how was that for you? Relaxing, great. Anything else? Calming, excellent. So how often do you have the invitation to be awake and relaxed at the same time? It's pretty unusual, isn't it, in our day-to-day life? So things get in the way of that. Interruptions. I would guess in your world that you have a lot of texts and phone calls and information to manage, constantly reprioritizing. Is that right? Yes? Yes, okay. I find that leadership is leadership. No matter what audience I'm talking to, it seems like leadership is the same no matter what sector we're talking to. So the title of this talk is about mindfulness and high-performance leadership, but I also want to make sure that we touch into the topic of safety. The thing that drew me to mindfulness, I mentioned that my background is nursing. So mindfulness simply is being present and being focused, intentional. We'll get into that a little bit more deeply in a moment. But the thing that really drew me into this was that in nursing and healthcare, if we make a mistake, it can be life-threatening, right? The stakes are very high. And the distractions are all around. Alarms, information, lots of electronic messaging. I'm guessing not unlike your environments and those environments of those that you lead. And so teaching people how to pay attention really carefully in the moment and not being distracted by what just happened in the last encounter or what might happen in the next became really intriguing to me, and we're doing a lot of work to look at how mindfulness really supports safety. So I'm just drawing that parallel that I think that it really pertains to both of our fields. So it was mentioned that we are from the Center for Mindfulness and Compassion and Resilience at ASU, and I have a table of my colleagues right over here. So if you have questions about the center or about mindfulness, the three people at this table are able to answer questions also, as well as me. So let's talk about what is mindfulness, because I'll tell you, this topic is everywhere. We go into bookstores or magazines, TV shows, lots and lots about mindfulness these days. When I first started doing research in mindfulness, I was at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona as the Director of Nursing Research and Innovation, and that was back in 2004. Many people had not heard about mindfulness, and so my job was really to tell them what it was. These days, my job is to really clarify what is it, because a lot of people have misconceptions about what it is, or we just don't have the same understanding. So when I'm talking about mindfulness, it's really about a non-judgmental, intentional awareness. And when I say non-judgment, it doesn't mean that you are wishy-washy or that you can't decide. It means that we bring a sense of non-judgment and compassion, not only to those that we serve, but also to ourselves, which sounds very easy, but it's very difficult. So being aware of the present moment, not thinking about the past or the future, but really being in the moment is very, very powerful in terms of being able to choose our response instead of reacting willy-nilly to things. So as Katie mentioned, there's a growing evidence base, a lot of research happening in this arena. Everything from kids from K through 12 to, in the group that we work with, it's mostly college kids and professors who are under a lot of stress. Lots of work in the healthcare space, sports, really looking a lot into mindfulness. So I think that you'll see a growing body of evidence, and we can talk about the research a little bit as we go. These are skills that can be practiced in everyday life. You don't have to go to a studio or go to a mountaintop. That's another kind of myth of mindfulness, is that you have to go somewhere to actually practice it. You can practice it in your office, in the hallway, in your home, in the streets. You can practice it anywhere, and actually that's sort of the intention of mindfulness, is to take it from the practice out into the world. So often mindfulness, we do talk about having an intentional practice, just like an athlete would have a workout and practices before they would go into a game. We have those kind of workouts, and those are intentionally times that are set apart in time and space to really cultivate this skill of mindfulness so that we can take it into our life, so that when those things happen, when those curveballs happen, we're much better able to deal with them. So mindfulness is not just zoning out. So often we think that you'll just get a clear mind. Did anybody have a clear mind as we just did that breath meditation? Completely zoning out? If you did, I'm worried about you. It means that you might be in need of resuscitation, because your brains are built to think, and those distractions that come in, those are just part of mindfulness. They're just part of meditation. They're not a problem to worry about. And so often when I hear people say, well, I tried to be mindful, but I failed. And so we dig a little bit deeper and ask, well, why did you fail? Because I couldn't stop my mind. I just couldn't stop those thoughts. Well, that's not the point. And we'll talk about that a bit more. So mindfulness is not just zoning out. It's also not, in the way that I'm talking about it, it's not a religion. You know, it's built on many, many faith traditions and wisdom traditions and cultures, and we honor the work that has been done for centuries in terms of teaching us how to learn and live mindfully. But the way that we're going to talk about it, it's not a religion, and it shouldn't get in the way of your personal belief system, and you don't need a personal belief system in order to practice it, all right? So it's just, in the way that we're offering it, it's very secular and neutral that way. So it's also, mindfulness is more than just deep breathing. If it were about breathing, you would all be experts already. And from what I'm hearing, some of this might be your first time about mindfulness. So we use the breath as an anchor for the attention, but it's actually the attention that we're training. It's your brain, your attention, your focus that's being trained. The breath is an amazing anchor for that attention. And one of the reasons is that it's portable, it's free, it moves with you so that you can use that breath in any place, in any situation, to be the anchor for your attention. But the real oomph, the real strength that comes from mindfulness is really about the attention and training our focus. So these are things that mindfulness is not. It's also not simply stress reduction. It does help with stress reduction, and we often say that the stress reduction is a side effect. You know, you hear all of the pharmaceutical ads on TV and all the side effects that can happen. So I'm here to tell you that stress reduction can be a side effect of mindfulness. It isn't the main effect, but the reason that it works is that when you place yourself fully in this moment, anxiety, which is often worrying about the future, and depression, which is often thinking about the past or ruminating about the past, anxiety and depression don't have the same power over us when we are in the present moment. Does that make sense? So as you are rooting yourself in the present moment, you can let go of those things and use the energy that you were holding on to the past or worrying about the future. You can use that energy in this moment to do this thing, or to think this thing, or to imagine this thing, or to solve this conflict. So mindfulness draws a lot of power from the present moment. I will say that it doesn't mean that you set aside your goals and ambitions. That's another question that I often get. Well, if I'm only in the present moment, how will I ever have achievement or goal orientation? So mindfulness can help us understand where our motives are coming from and where our own personal sense of strength is. It certainly should not take away your ambition. It should just help us know better how to get where we're going and why. Why are you drawn to going in that direction? All right? So it shouldn't take away any motivation or goal orientation. It's just more about, for the moment, setting those things aside so that you can really understand from your own personal experience what is going to motivate you and what is going to motivate the others that you lead to go the next step. So mindfulness is really powerful in your own well-being. So thinking about things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, increased heart rate, all of these things can be modulated and helped by a mindfulness practice. In fact, that's a lot of times what draws people into a mindfulness practice, is that they have had some major life event or health event. So it can be very supportive of your well-being. Thinking about your own well-being, what are some of the things, and I'm just asking you, you don't have to share out this portion, but what are some of the things that you already do to support your well-being? So getting those in mind. And what would it be like if you could do those things every single day, or even every single hour of every single day? How would that feel? It would be amazing. But most of us can't go to the gym 24/7 or go have a massage 24/7. So mindfulness is a way to get that well-being into your moment by moment into your life, to get you back to baseline, to reset your nervous system, to reset your response to stress. It's really about this dynamic balance. And I don't mean a static, we talk a lot about work-life balance, which kind of seems, in my mind, to be a bit of a myth and another thing that we have to do. So we talk about work-life balance as more of a moving equilibrium, sort of an integration of work and life. And I love this little graphic of mindful or mindful. So is your mind full of everything? Excuse me, or can you focus on one or two things? So does this picture bring up any familiar feelings? This is like Grand Central Station. This might look like your mind on any given day, or it might look like your life, like all of these people moving in and out, things that you have to sort through and navigate. So mindfulness is helpful in helping us to sort through what are the priorities, what are the things that I really need to focus on in order to go the next step, and in terms of leading my crew to the next step. So often we get into this habitual way of dealing with things, and this can be physical or it can be emotional or mental. We just get in patterns, and there's a very good reason for why we are on autopilot a lot of times, and that is efficiency. Our brains and bodies are really built to find the fastest way to get someplace with the least amount of energy. Have you ever noticed that? You really want to exert the least amount of energy. And so habits can be very helpful in conserving energy, but habits, especially habits of mind, can also be dangerous because they get in the way of us seeing people and situations in a fresh way and being able to come up with alternatives. All right? So I want to lead you through another mindfulness exercise. So the first one we did was breath meditation. This one is going to be more around finding a solution to a problem. So does anybody have a problem that you could think of? A little issue that you might be having in your life? You don't have to raise your hands. I would guess that most of you in your roles have something that you've been working on, some kind of issue or problem, dilemma. So everybody get one of those in mind. All right, now I'd like you to get back into your mindfulness posture. So feet on the ground, backs up straight but not rigid, just a nice curve in your spine. If you'd like, you can lean back on your chair for this one. It's mostly about you getting comfortable and centered. So softening your gaze or really closing your eyes. And getting in your mind's eye that issue or problem that you've been having. And this should be like on a scale of 1 to 10, this should be about a 4. So not a crisis, but something that's been bugging you. And really imagine in your mind and your body, where has that affected you? Often people talk about headaches or stomach aches, heart racing, that kind of thing. So what has that problem been causing you to have? Sleep disturbance? And then I'd like for you to imagine that a friend of yours, somebody that you really care about, comes and sits in a chair right in front of you, and you can see that person clearly. So imagining this friend of yours comes, and it turns out that this friend needs some help with a problem. And so you're there to listen and to support your friend. And so your friend actually describes having the very same problem that you do. And so as you're sitting there and supporting your friend, really imagine how you would listen to them. What gestures would you make? What words would you use that you know that you need to hear? How would you be a supportive and kind presence with them? And as you support them, noticing that they thank you and they leave, they get up from the chair and leave. And then it turns out that you come and sit in that chair across from you. So you're actually looking at yourself like you would in a mirror. And so seeing yourself, and yourself tells you this exact problem, and you listen the way that you would to your friend. And so you show up for yourself with kindness and support, compassion. You make the same gestures that you would for your friend. And you say the words that only you know that you need to hear. And just noticing what it's like to really be with yourself in a way that is compassionate and understanding. I would guess that you are kind and understanding and patient with the people that you lead, sometimes at the sacrifice of how you show up for yourself. So just noticing what it's like to be compassionate to yourself. And then just noticing if any new ways of thinking come up about this problem that you've been having. And this may happen now or it may happen later today. But chances are there will be a different way, a more creative way to come about this problem because of having spent this time in reflection. And then noticing as you give yourself this kind of compassion, thinking about the whole planet, the whole world, all the people on the planet today and those that have ever lived or ever will live. And consider how many of those people have had this same problem or a version of it. And they've made it through or they will make it through. And that perhaps after you've worked through this problem, you'll be better able to help other people with a problem like this. So that spending this time and this consideration of your own self is not selfish. It is not about only yourself. It is also about learning how to serve others who might in the future have the same problem that you're dealing with today. And so now just taking a couple of deeper breaths and allowing all of that to sink in. And then bringing some small movements to your fingers and toes. And again, allowing your eyes to open. So this exercise took us just a couple of minutes. And I have found that type of exercise to be very helpful in my teams. So prior to being the Chief Wellbeing Officer, I was the Dean of the College of Nursing and Health Innovation for 8 years at ASU. So the ASU is the largest public university in the country, and the nursing school is about 4,700 people. So it's large, and the leadership challenges were difficult and complicated sometimes. And so in my executive team meetings, we would start with a moment for mindfulness. And if we ever got stuck, we would do a version of what this exercise is, always putting the student in the center of our discussion. And it just helped us to get a different perspective on things and to come at problems more creatively and compassionately without robbing ourselves. So so now you're in this different space emotionally and cognitively, and now I'm going to draw you into statistics, which is like a whiplash, so sorry about that. But I do want to draw your attention to these numbers. 47% of the time is the amount of time that leaders report their minds wandering. So that is stunning on so many levels. And as the speaker who is talking to you about mindfulness and leadership, I know that 47% of you aren't really here with me right now. So our minds wander. It's just a normal part of our life, and leaders are more prone to that than others because you're serving other people. So 70% is the average time that leaders report being unable to be attentive in meetings, and yet how many meetings do we have? So many, so very many. And 2% of leaders actively make time to enhance personal productivity. So what would happen if we spent just a little bit more time reflecting and growing those muscles of presence and attention and focus? I think it's a really incredible resource that we have. You know, so many times resources are time and money. This kind of resource has no cost to it. It has no cost to it other than the time that you invest in it. And we just invested a total of probably 5 minutes of your time strengthening your focus and your resolve to be in the present moment. So I think that's a pretty good ROI when you think about it. So I want to ask you now, how do you know that you're stressed? And I want you to turn to the person beside you. I don't want you to talk about what stresses you. I want you to talk about how do you know that you're stressed, okay? Lean to the person next to you and say, how do you know that you're stressed? All right. I know that was short, but we're gonna nip that in the bud. Stop. Stop. Time out. You're done. You're out. You're done. Quit. All right. So each one of you has your own fingerprint that is very unique for how you know that you're stressed. So the fact that you know that you're stressed is your first wake-up call and your first way of being mindful, because you know, is it that you're grumpy? Is it that you're angry? Is that you take it out on the dog? I don't know what it is for you, but you do. And so really understanding what is that sign, and that is your signal. That is your go button for when you need to really take more care of yourself. So I often tell this story when my husband is not here, he is not here. So the man that I love the most in the world is my husband, luckily. Right? And when I get stressed, he turns in to a flaming idiot. Right? Does he really? No. No. That is what Tara Brach, who is a meditation teacher and author, calls it's time to do a U-turn. So when I notice, that's my fingerprint, when I get short with him, when he seems to be really irritating me, it's time for me to take better care of myself. And to, maybe it's as simple as a couple of deep breaths, get recentered, and then I can go about my world. So for you, understanding what your signals are is really important. It's a crucial leadership competency, because look at this slide. This is how your stress impacts your body. Every single system of your body. There is not one system that is unaffected by stress. So are you really depressed now? We've talked about your signals for stress and that it impacts every single part of your body. The good news is, likewise, when you learn how to really modulate your presence and your focused attention, you can reverse or at least maintain a lot of this problem that happens. And as our bodies are under chronic stress, these problems become even more severe. So the ones that I often hear about in leadership audiences are sleep disturbances, eating disturbances, mostly eating too much or not enough, or eating junk, basically really high fat, high salt, high sugar, because in the evolutionary world, those are the kind of foods that really fuel us for fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the kind of foods that give us energy. But as we're drawn to them over and over and over again, that coupled with the fact that cortisol is just coursing through our body under stress, it really puts us at risk for increased belly fat and all kinds of chronic conditions like hypertension, diabetes, sleep disturbance, all kinds of things. So to be able to stop and bring your focus, even just using your breath to recalibrate your body, can really reverse or slow these changes. So if nothing else, what I would like you to remember about this session is that next time you go to eat a meal, just bring yourself into the present moment. It can be just like 1 or 2 deep breaths. What happens when you breathe deeply is that you stimulate a nerve, a part of the central nervous system called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes from your brain all the way through your abdomen, through your gut, through your lungs and your heart. And so it signals, when you take a deep breath, it signals that everything is okay. That signal goes back up to the brain, and that wash of cortisol, adrenaline, can be stopped, slowed, or at least moderated. So the next time you go to eat a meal, just a nice deep breath, and you will start to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, sort of modulating that flood of cortisol, and you'll be better able to digest your meal, not only mechanically, like from the stomach and the gut, but also hormonally. All right, so you've learned some physiology. So you've learned about the vagus nerve and about your gut and how it responds to stress, as well as all of these other things. And probably this isn't news to you. You've probably already known about this. This is just a gentle reminder for you. So the amygdala is part of our brain that is, I think of it as like a smoke detector. When we encounter stress or a danger, it really alerts us to the fact that this is happening. And immediately we can go into the emotional response to stress. And so often that is anger or that is hostility. And so being able to notice those things and intervene in them. So when we think about mindfulness, one of the ways to think about it is your observer mind. So the mind that watches your mind, in a way. So being able to separate yourself from your thoughts and from the stories that you naturally tell yourself. So being able to we think of it as the balcony and the dance floor. We all love to be on the dance floor, that's great, but sometimes when we draw ourselves up to the balcony, we can get a whole new perspective on our thoughts and our stories. So one of the research projects that I was involved with was looking at patients with chronic low back pain and teaching them mindfulness skills. And we did a control group and then the mindfulness group. And it was really interesting, and we looked at functional MRI, so looking at brain scans while people are doing this practice so that we can actually see areas of the brain light up. And in short, what we found was that the mindfulness practice may not have changed the actual pain or the situation that caused the pain, but it changed the story about the pain. And you think about yourself, the last time that you were really experiencing a hard pain, whether that was emotional or physical, we often tell ourselves a story. This pain is never going to go away. It's always going to be here with me, and it's going to get in the way of me doing these meaningful things in my life. And so interrupting the story with an objective observer mind and thinking instead, this is my experience today, might not be my experience in the future. It's just what is happening to me today. And can I tell myself a different story or no story about this? And so these are skills that you can also take back in your leadership role. When you encounter a problem, often there's the problem, but then there's the story around the problem. And sometimes people will bring you the story around the problem, and it takes a while to get to the actual problem. But with your observer's mind, with your acute, sort of decision-making mind, deciding what is real in this situation and what's the story that is being told about it, really important. And that also puts you in a place of control of what is the story that you would prefer to tell yourself, all right? So we really want to understand, how can you use this in the work that you're doing? So we have a microphone up here. Since we're being recorded, we do need you to come to the mic, unless you're sitting up here and I can repeat what it is that you tell me. But do you see ways that you can use this when you go back to your the real world after this? Any ways? Come on up to the mic. And you know I'm a teacher, so I can really outweight you. All right, the people in the front, I might be calling on you. Yes, sir. Thank you. If you would come to the mic, it will help us all out. Let's give them a hand. Yay! Thank you so much.
I think one of the ways you could start doing this is in your team meeting when you start your day, is just have everybody take 30 seconds and just do something like this before you go.
Yes.
Because in the waste industry, the morning at 7 a.m. is the busiest time of day, I've noticed. So I'm wondering if that's something we could even try to do in the solid waste business without getting laughed at from the people that work in the facilities that we manage, but something to try.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Again, a round of applause. Yes. Yes. And I love the part that you said, without getting laughed at. Because I'll tell you what, this takes courage. The first time I introduced this to my executive leadership team, I thought, they are going to laugh at me. They are going to kick me out. They're going to think I'm woo-woo. Well, come to find out, it became part of our routine that they didn't want to give up on ever. They would, if I didn't remember, they would remind me. So leadership is courage, right? And so when your folks see you taking that risk on their behalf, saying this is really about your safety, this is about you being present for the work that you do, I think it's incredibly courageous, and you do have to stick your neck out a bit. So thank you very much, and I wish you luck. I hope you'll let us know how it goes. Anyone else? All right, we'll leave it at that, but I hope that you'll all be thinking and maybe writing in your playbook about how will you take this back to your work environment. So we really want to talk about resilience. Mindfulness and resilience go hand in hand, because in mindfulness, we learn to hold the present moment, the reality that is. And sometimes that's joyful and happy and wonderful, and sometimes it's hard. It could be grief, it could be loss, it could be a lot of different things. So mindfulness teaches us the muscle of holding what is with no judgment and really acceptance. And the longer we can learn to hold it, it's like a craving. When you have a craving and you outweigh it, it goes away. And so it is with life. The problems that we have, the joys that we have, they all sort of come and go. So being aware and awake for that is really important. So often there's this curve of, really the feeling scale goes all the way up to euphoria, and then dysphoria is sort of a blue mood. And so this is the curve of where you get the most performance, not only from yourself, but from your team, and then when it goes down. And so often we effort up to a point, and then we over-effort, and actually there's a diminishing return to that. So just being aware of where are you on this curve, and where are the people around you on this curve, so that you can really support them. And everybody has a different place, of wanting to be pushed and challenged, and needing to back off a bit. So some really practical tools to build resilience. So one is really set your intention for the day before you start with your texts and your emails and all that you do. So setting that intention, how do you want to be today, in addition to what do you want to do today? I call it your to-be list instead of your to-do list. Often when I update my password, I just use because how many times do you have to enter your password in a day? So many. And so choosing a password that is my intention about something that I want to grow or to aspire to, that's just a practical tip. So having rituals. In nursing, we wash our hands between every patient, and it's a really good chance to get present, to leave the past there and to get fresh for the next person. So washing your hands and breathing deeply. Really nourishing yourself. And this sounds so basic, but giving yourself good, high quality food in the right amounts, sleeping, really supporting your sleep environment and your patterns, and then getting enough physical activity and fun in your life. Talking about enjoyment. Having mindful eating practices. So having a meal with someone that you really enjoy. So this study by Oxford Economics found that eating alone is the biggest factor for unhappiness. And as a leader, at least in my leadership experience, sometimes it's a very lonely pursuit. There often are very few people that you can talk to and share everything with for lots of different reasons. So really cultivating those people around you, and I bet that they're in this room, of people that can support you and nourish your well-being in community. And then tap into your creativity. Often where we get most creative is actually when we're bored, believe it or not. And how many of us tolerate boredom very well? Well, just walk through the airport on your way home, and you will not see a person often just sitting there. We're on our devices so much of the time, or we're engaged with information. So having the chance to empty out of all of the information that is coming at us, and just being empty for a while, boredom, our mind will create something fun and exciting. And that's often where creativity comes in. So thinking about what you enjoyed as a child is often a great way to get that started. So Viktor Frankl wrote a wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor. And he gave us this quote that is such a powerful teacher. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so by taking a pause, even if it's only a breath in the midst of your day-to-day, it puts you fully in the present moment and able to respond to things instead of simply reacting from your amygdala, your automatic response. So if we can support you in any way, the Center for Mindfulness, we really want to do that. Our website is there, our email is there. So if we can, on our website is a lot of free information, other websites, lots of toolkits for you. So if this has inspired any part of your imagination of learning more, please visit us and let us know too how we can support you in your work, because it's incredibly important. The leadership that you exert, given the change and the pace of change and the high stakes that you are leading, it's incredible. And so we really thank you. And I want to thank you this morning for your kind attention. You've been wonderful. So thank you, and my most sincere wishes for your well-being. Thank you.